What's up, everybody? Welcome back. We're here with some more NFL DFS picks and lineup advice for DraftKings and FanDuel. This time for the Week 5 Thursday Night Football single game showdown slate between the Los Angeles Rams and the San Francisco 49ers. In this video, we will discuss the injuries that certainly impact tonight's slate. We will look at low risk lineup construction tips and core plays for DFS. And then we'll get to the high risk strategy section of the show where we give you the angles, strategies, and picks to help you take down the biggest prizes that DraftKings and FanDuel have to offer on what could be the most interesting slate we have for the entire season. Welcome, I'm Brian Jester, co-founder here at Occupy, fantasy single game $1 million winner. And the reason it is one of the most interesting slates and potentially the most interesting slate of the season are the injuries and some pricing on both DraftKings and FanDuel. Let's start and let's get into the 49ers. No Brock Purdy. No Ricky Pearsall, no Juwan Jennings. They're already without George Kittle. They're already without Nick Bosa on the defensive side of the ball. Really tough setup to start the year for San Francisco. So without Brock Purdy, Mac Jones will draw the start. He started 2 games in Purdy's absence, week 2 and week 3, and performed pretty admirably. And he's priced appropriately at $9,200 on DraftKings. However, and just seeing when FanDuel changed their pricing system, you knew this was going to happen at some point just because of what FanDuel does. We go over to FanDuel. Backup quarterbacks are the minimum $1,000 on FanDuel. And we knew this was going to happen. Mac Jones is the minimum $1,000 on FanDuel tonight. If you haven't opened a FanDuel contest yet, you will see this now for the first time. Minimum price, Mac Jones. Projects for at least 10 points, but probably closer to 13 to 15 points, depending on the source that you're looking at. And he is the bare minimum price. We'll talk about this in the different sections of the show, what this means for your lineups. But an outright disaster for building lineups tonight with Mac Jones as the minimum price. Now, as far as the receivers go, let's go back to DraftKings. So without Ricky Pearsall, remember Brandon Ayuk is still on injured reserve, or PUP. And Juwan Jennings is also out. So in their absence, we will see, more than likely, Kendrick Bourne at 4,600 on DraftKings be the number 1 receiver tonight. Demarcus Robinson, who was suspended for the first 3 games of the season, he returned last week. He'll be the wide receiver too. And it's a coin flip between Sky Moore and Marquez Valdez-Scantling as the wide receiver 3. Valdez-Scantling 2,600, Sky Moore $800. I lean towards Sky Moore getting the nod here. And I'll tell you why. First of all, if we look at the routes in last game, it was Juwan Jennings 35. It was Kendrick Bourne 30. Ricky Pearsall 25. Demarcus Robinson 14. Sky Moore 5. Now, MVS, Valdez-Scantling, he was inactive last week. He doesn't play special teams. So Sky Moore gets the nod over him when that is a decision to be made. But even back in week 3, Sky Moore outsnapped Valdez-Scantling 34-17. So that would lead us to believe that Sky Moore is still probably ahead of MVS on the depth chart. And it'll depend what industry projections spit out later today. Right now, some sites have MVS ahead. Some sites have Sky Moore ahead. Either way, they could cannibalize each other's ownership as a result. We get 2 low-owned, potentially receiver options for San Francisco tonight. Now, on the Rams side, no Tyler Higbee. He is doubtful. We will probably not see him play the tight end, which means that we'll have Davis Allen at $1,200 on DraftKings, and we will have, there he is, Colby Parkinson at $600, and we'll also likely have rookie Terrence Ferguson active at the minimum price of $200. Now, it's kind of hard to decipher who's going to get the most run between Parkinson and Davis Allen. They've both played this year. They've both led after Tyler Higbee in snaps. One week it was Parkinson, next week it was Allen. It's hard to say. And I can't come on here and give you a definitive answer who's going to get the most routes, most targets tonight between these 2 guys. Point is, if you're making multiple lineups, get both Allen and Parkinson into your player pool and mix and match them both. And honestly, if you're double punting, you could play both, where they both get a couple targets and a couple catches. The one thing we feel confident about is Terrence Ferguson is probably not ready for a defined role. The most recent report about him was just helping him on the scout team on days he's inactive. So the one time Ferguson was active this season, it was when Allen was out in week 2. Parkinson was out in week 2, and he played just 4 snaps. So expect minimal snaps for Terrence Ferguson. Really only a play if you're playing 150 lineups. Also, they're missing their offensive tackle Rob Havenstein. So that's a little bit of a downgrade to the Rams offense. Not to be outdone by the 49ers and all of their injuries. Rams have a couple injuries of their own tonight as well. All right, now let's talk about low-risk contests. 50-50s, double-ups, head-to-heads. Just have to beat half the field to double your money in DFS. We'll start with DraftKings, where it's more interesting. Maybe it's not. We'll see. So what you can do on DraftKings, and again, if you know the strategy by now that we've talked about in the show, you try to lock up the scoring by playing both quarterbacks and both running backs. The one difference tonight is Puka Nacua is the best player in fantasy football, one of the highest floors and ceilings despite being a wide receiver. We're talking about a minimum point total of 25 points so far. That's certainly more than his teammate Kyren Williams at running back. So we want to get Puka, Christian McCaffrey, Matthew Stafford, Mac Jones. The question becomes Mac Jones or Kyren Williams. But as Sean McVay has said, and as they've indicated as much in their playing time, they don't want to give Kyren Williams as much workload as they've given him in the past. In week 1, he had 94% of the rushes. Let's bring him up, Kyren Williams. 94% of the carries for LA. Last week, that number dipped all the way down to 59%. He's still managing 2 to 4 targets a game, so he's going to play no matter what. But in week 1, he played 82% of the snaps. 2 of the 3 following weeks, he was closer to a 70-30 split. And that is what Sean McVay and these coaches have said they want as the ideal split between Kyren and backup Blake Corum. So we have a guy who's splitting touches more than he has in the past. And it's not like he has a monster floor ceiling so far this season. Again, he could score 3 touchdowns tonight for sure. But when his floor is, 5, 10 points, 5 to 12 points, and we have a quarterback in Mac Jones who's going to score 10 plus points in this matchup, he's the easier low-risk play over Kyren Williams. Now, this leaves just $800 left per player, which generally would not be enough. But what you could do, you could play Colby Parkinson, the starting tight end or co-starting tight end tonight at $600, and that will leave you enough to either play Sky Moore or the number 3 receiver for LA, Jordan Whittington. So certainly options there. And maybe you could switch it up a bit between McCaffrey and Nacua at captain. Even if you tried to go cheaper at captain, you don't really get much benefit in terms of salary savings. So these are the core 4 guys you want to get onto DraftKings in your low-risk lineups tonight. Now, if we go to FanDuel, this may be the most duplicated lineup in Showdown history. And it's not an exaggeration. It's a real statement backed by data. So if we play Mac Jones at MVP, right, this allows you to fit literally everyone. And this isn't like a typical 1K punt to fit everyone in. This is an actual quarterback with a real projection of 10 to 15 points, if not more. So you're not just fully punting the MVP position. So McCaffrey, Nacua, Stafford, Kyren Williams. And guess what? You can still fit Devontae Adams. The 5 top scorers on this slate fit in with Mac Jones. This lineup will be thousands of dupes, tens of thousands of dupes in the largest contest. It's pretty insane of how many duplicates this will have. So the question becomes, this is obviously the best lineup. Part of our process at Occupy, we go around and we look at industry DFS sites, we see what they're projecting, we look at their optimal lineups. And this lineup here is the optimal by a few points. Generally, the optimal lineup is the best by a point or less. So every set of projections is telling you that this is far and away the best option. However, there's a pretty good chance that this lineup in your 50-50 or your double up or your head-to-head is duplicated more than the number of spots there are to cash. What does that mean? So if you're playing a 100-player double up, there's a chance that because 50% of the lineup's cash there's a chance that this lineup is in more than 50 entries, which means even if it wins, you're going to win less than the double up amount, which means I think that, and again, it's football. The optimal doesn't always hit. In fact, it rarely hits. I think the move, though, despite this far and away being the best lineup on FanDuel tonight, if you're playing low risk, I think the move is to play the second or third optimal, which is going to be significantly less duplicated and gives you a better chance at the double up payout. And it's putting Mac Jones in the flex and putting either Nacua or McCaffrey at MVP. We'll put Nacua since they are the favorite team. Let's put Puka. We'll put Mac Jones here. And that leaves us 4K, and now we can fit the San Francisco wide receiver 1 in Kendrick Bourne. Same goes if you put McCaffrey and MVP. So I truly think this is the way to go on FanDuel tonight. Yes, you're not playing the optimal lineup, and very rarely will we tell you not to play the optimal lineup in a 50-50 double up or head-to-head. But because it'll be so heavily duplicated, this likely gives you the better chance. If you look at the math, weighs out the probability of hitting versus how much you'll actually get back in a double up. And there's a lot of time we're spending on this, but there's going to be so much duplication tonight on both sides that you really have to think about what you want to accomplish and what you're willing to risk, because even in high risk contests, there's a good chance that a heavily duplicated lineup wins tonight on both DraftKings and FanDuel. So it's a night to not necessarily expose your bankroll very much, maybe take a few shots here and there, or if you're comfortable with this type of slate, fully lean into it. All right, on that note, let's talk about these high-risk contests, leagues, GPP, satellites, where you got to beat a lot of people to win a lot of money. And this is a night where if there is not heavy duplication, there's a really good chance for a solo winner, really good chance to easily win high-risk GPPs or small field GPPs just based on lineup construction alone. Let's get a water sip break in first. All right, so the name of the game tonight is leaving salary on the table. That is the number one and the main way to get different tonight in high-risk contests. And the question is always going to be, Brian, how much salary do I leave on the table? We're going to have 50 questions in the comments. If I have this, how much salary can I leave? I'm going to try to give you a framework here of how to answer that question. You can still ask the question, and I'll try to answer it as best I can. But we'll try to answer that question here in the video. So the question becomes, ultimately, on both sides, can the mid-range outscore Davante Adams, Kyren Williams, Matthew Stafford, and Mac Jones on DraftKings? Obviously, it's a different story on FanDuel with Mac Jones. So the question is, we look at Mac Jones, 9,200. We look at Kyren Williams, 9K. We look at Davante Adams, 9,600. The question is, can the guys below them outscore them, and can we leave that amount of salary on the table in lineups that include them? So the kickers, can they outscore all three of them? Seems unlikely. It would have to be a pretty low-scoring game, and you'd have to consider that in your build. Not sure that's possible for them to outscore all three. But can Kendrick Bourne and Demarcus Robinson outscore all three of those guys? Absolutely, yes. Can the defenses? Probably only in a really low-scoring game. We've seen it happen before. So really, the answer becomes, in lineups that use Kendrick Bourne or Demarcus Robinson, you can leave a ton more salary on the table because if they hit, they truly hit as wide receiver ones or twos in a systemically good offense. They can outscore Davante Adams, Mac Jones, Kyren Williams. So that's your framework. If you're playing one of those two guys in a lineup, be prepared to leave up to $4,000 or $5,000 on the table, if not more. If you're not, it becomes a little trickier to leave salary on the table. The same goes for FanDuel. Let's go over to FanDuel. Let's clear this lineup really quickly. And now the question becomes, first of all, the question, can Mac Jones outscore how many guys above him? In a typical quarterback setting, he can outscore Kendrick Bourne, backup receivers, backup running backs, defenses, kickers, tight ends, Davante Adams, Kyren Williams. So, depending on the build, any lineup with Mac Jones can leave a bunch of money on the table, assuming he can outscore these guys, and he can. But the real question is, can those other guys, Demarcus Robinson, 5,200, Kendrick Bourne, 3,600, can they outscore these guys up here? Yes, they absolutely can. So, let's just say, can they outscore Kyren Williams at 10,800? Which means if you use Demarcus Robinson or Kendrick Bourne in favor of one of those guys, you can leave up to $5,000 on the table, right? Because you could certainly upgrade to Kyren with that lineup, and that upgraded Kyren lineup will be so heavily duplicated. But if Demarcus Robinson outscores him, and again, the number of duplicates of the Demarcus Robinson 1v1 versus the number of duplicates in a Kyren Williams 1v1 does not match reality. So you're going to win a lot more, and it's not going to win as often, but when it wins, it's going to win a lot more if you play D-Rob over Kyren, Kendrick Bourne over Kyren, over Davante Adams, over Matthew Stafford in some cases. I mean, let's look at, I'm going to pull up our Occupy model, occupyfantasy.com, a great reason to plug it right now. Again, you get access to this for as little as $7 per week. On our website, you get our daily plug with our write-up, our Occupy model with projected ownership, and then with our lineup builder packages, you get access to our lineup builder tool. And what I love to do on these types of slates, right now I have it sorted by FanDuel salary. This is the FanDuel Flex salary. And you can see our FanDuel projected ownership up here. FanDuel MVP is their MVP projected ownership. FanDuel is just their Flex projected ownership. Look at these top guys. McCaffrey, Puka, Stafford, Kyren, Davante, all 45% plus in the Flex. Obviously, the top three get 20% plus in the MVP. And then there's one or two guys, 20% or higher, until you get down to Mac Jones. Not a typo, 86% Flex, 9% projected. MVP on FanDuel. So look at all these low-owned plays because the field is exclusively going to build four guys at the top plus Mac Jones, 5 guys at the top plus Mac Jones. So any lineup that includes something in the middle here and leaves a little bit of salary, easily differentiate it and can easily win. So obviously Kendrick Bourne is 25%. Demarcus Robinson is 15%. The kickers may get up to 20%. Anyone else, no one's even touching. But the few lineups that use Kendrick Bourne and or Demarcus Robinson are going to look a very specific way. They're all going to look extremely similar. They're going to look like what I sent you in the alternative cash game build. It's going to look like this. Puka, McCaffrey, Mac Jones in the flex, Matt Stafford, Devontae Adams, Kendrick Bourne, or let's go up, or Kyron Williams, Kendrick Bourne. As these 4 or 5 guys, including Mac Jones, plus one of the receivers. Any build that does not look like that is automatically different. That's your goal. If you build something like this, it's going to be, even if you cash, you might not even double your money. Building something like this is the wrong way to go tonight. So for high-risk contests, the very easy answer on FanDuel tonight is don't build one of these 2 setups. Mac Jones MVP, not leaving salary. Puka, Puka or McCaffrey, Stafford, plus the other 4 top guys, plus a middle receiver in Demarcus Robinson, Kendrick Bourne. Anything that is not that, you do it, and that is probably a positive expected value lineup tonight. Now, DraftKings is a little bit different, right? We don't have the Mac Jones free square. But let's go to the model, and let's sort by DraftKings Flex. And again, we're looking at this column now, DraftKings Flex ownership, this is captain ownership. So yeah, the top guys, 33% plus, all the way up from Kyron, all the way up to Nakua in the flex. And then we look down, yes, Kendrick Bourne, 30%, D-Rob, 33%, Parkinson, 22%, because he's the punt that allows you to fit in these guys at the top. So anything that is not punt plus these guys, or Kendrick Bourne, Demarcus Robinson that leaves salary, is different. So you're making rules tonight. You're hand building. Those are your goals tonight. Don't build one of the 3 or 4 builds that the field is doing. And if you use Demarcus Robinson or Kendrick Bourne, leave salary on the table. It's that simple. That is what this slate comes down to tonight. The other question you'll get is, well, how do I use these other guys in the mid-range? Starting tight end. Let's go back to DraftKings here. Starting tight end, Jake Tonges. The defenses, the kickers, Tutu Atwell, Blake Corum. Those have a much more difficult chance of outscoring the top guys. But in large field GPPs, if you swap from, let's say, Kendrick Bourne to Blake Corum, that's still going to be relatively duplicated because it's just a 1v1 swap versus the optimal in that lineup construction. So you got to get a little different. But again, you can't leave too much salary with those guys because they're very unlikely to outscore Devontae Adams, Matt Jones, Kyron Williams. Same goes for the kickers and defenses, unless you play for a really, really under game script. So let me check my notes here, make sure I didn't miss anything else. So for mass multi-entry, especially on FanDuel, this is a pretty FanDuel-heavy video, but we have a lot of people that play FanDuel. I think the options are either lock Mac Jones in an MVP, play 100%, and just get as many different combos of that as you can that are not the pure lock cash optimal, or get overweight on all the mid-range guys, and that'll naturally get you different. Overweight on including the San Francisco receivers, but the kickers and defense as well. Play them really heavily. That gets you out of that top 5 stud build. Now, there was a game that was relatively similar, and coincidentally enough, it involved the 49ers. This was back in 2020 during the COVID season, and it was Green Bay versus San Francisco. San Francisco had nobody. They were down to Nick Mullins at quarterback, Jerick McKinnon at running back, Richie James, Trent Taylor. These were the starting receivers. Yeah, remember those names? They were the starting receivers. They were facing Green Bay, who had their studs. They had Aaron Rodgers. They had Devontae Adams. They had Aaron Jones. That's similar to Puka Nacua, Christian McCaffrey, Matthew Stafford. And in that game, we saw a 2-way chop for the Millie. It was $550K per lineup because it left so much salary on the table with Richie James as the optimal captain. Now, looking before that game, you would say, can Richie James be the optimal captain? Who the hell is Richie James? But he was the number 1 receiver for a team in an NFL game. That same goes for Kendrick Bourne, Demarcus Robinson tonight. Can they be the highest scoring player on the slate? Yes. Is it likely? No. But in the sense that they are, and you leave enough salary to where you can upgrade to a better captain, and they're optimal captains, you're going to have a massive payday tonight. So the risk reward is pretty big tonight. The risk is extremely big because there's a very high risk for heavily duplicated lineups. But the reward, God forbid the game is just a little bit different and it doesn't go completely chalky, you have the chance to win a lot of money or a lot of satellite tickets in your GPPs tonight. So now I know this is a very different game. And if you haven't played this type of game before, it can be very difficult to wrap your mind around lineup builds. So a couple ways to do this. Join our Discord server, occupyfantasy.com/Discord. If you're a website member, you automatically get access. Just let us know. You can become a YouTube member here. It's like $2.99 a month, super cheap. That gets you access to the Discord. Or if you have Amazon Prime, you can get Twitch Prime through twitch.tv. That also gives you free access to our Discord. Drop a comment below. Any questions? I'm going to monitor this channel all day. I will gladly answer any questions you do have. Don't forget to drop the water emojis too for the engagement and to support the water break sip. And then also our daily plug, our writer Bismo, who does a fantastic job on these Monday and Thursday night showdown plugs. He's going to put his thoughts in there too. So you need a written outline. You want his rankings. You want his lineup construction tips. Go check out the daily plug. That'll be up later this afternoon at occupyfantasy.com. And again, as little as $7 per week gets you all the extra access beyond this video. Model, ownership, write-ups, lineup builder. So that'll do it for this video. I'm super excited to look forward to this game. I hope you are too. But thanks for tuning in. Appreciate you as always. For Occupy, I'm Brian. Thanks and good luck and enjoy tonight's 49ers and Rams game.